GEMP, written by J. Carrail Jones, narrated by Lauren Sweet.
Chapter 5. It was 1:39 a.m., and Kelly couldn't sleep. Neither Steve nor Kelly felt like talking when they got back to their room. They checked in on Oscar, who was fast asleep and dreaming. Both washed up, ate a quick meal from the pantry, and went to bed. Then she just woke up. "Steve, you awake?" Steve snoozed softly while drooling on his pillow. "Steve, you awake?" Steve rolled over. "Not yet. Why?" "Because I can't sleep." With his back still facing Kelly, he said, "And you want me to share in your insomnia?" No. Yes, I do." Steve yawned and rolled back over. "What are we going to do about the GEMPs?" "Which ones?" "Both." Steve took a deep breath. This was going to be a long night. "Kelly, government property, remember? I don't like it either, but we both signed the dotted line. Uncle Sam is paying for our retirement." "But they are alive. They think, for God's sake. They think and have emotions." "I know, but I don't think Ken meant Moss's group would be killed." "That's not how I heard him." "Ken said the wild GEMPs are an evolutionary dead end. He said no such thing about Moss's." "Steve, that's the point. One group gets killed." "Maybe. We don't know the big picture." "Okay, one group may get killed and the other something. What's the something? Research? Medical experiments? Zoos?" Steve thought a moment. Zoos. Very illogical, but who blames the government for thinking logically? "I think there really is something bigger going on here, but I'm too sleepy to talk about it. Just a few more hours of..." And he started snoozing again. Kelly watched him. Should she be mad? She gave the thought a few minutes to germinate. Yes, she should be. He fell asleep while they were talking. She thought she should give him the silent treatment in the morning and have him wonder what he did wrong all day. Men, never quite understanding what is important. Never quite understanding what is important. Steve woke up with a start. He dreamt he was talking to Kelly in the middle of the night and fell asleep while they were talking. He shook the fogginess from his head. It was just a dream, he eventually convinced himself. Steve stretched, yawned, and got up. It was 5:30 a.m. The morning briefing would be in another few hours, so he decided a quick wash-up and a trip to the base gym before breakfast would be a good thing. When he got there, Kelly was already working a Stairmaster. He walked up to an empty station next to Kelly. He climbed up and leaned in to say morning. Kelly saw when Steve walked in. He spotted her, smiled, and stopped at a station next to hers. She pretended not to notice him. When he leaned in to say hi, she looked away casually. Steve tapped Kelly on the shoulder. She turned, said, "Morning," then looked away again. Realization hit Steve. It wasn't a dream. He'd known Kelly long enough to know that she'd find an in to tell him what he did wrong. He sighed deeply, placed the earplugs attached to his smartphone into his ears, and started exercising.
Look in our eyes and understand we are a better reflection. Human but not engineered to be better, to be different. A clean slate to mark up, an empty glass to fill. We are the future, body, mind, and soul. Speaking by voice and by hand, learning to cope and adapt. We are engineered, treat us well and be friends. Fight us and be our enemy. We are here now, your future you created. Teach us and we will learn, superior, special, talented. We are great, we are engineered. This is our story,
Oscar had left that morning early. He had an agenda. His destination would be the GEMPs. It was worked out. He'd seen it on television many times. He watched some of the male soldiers use it on the female soldiers and civilians. PFC Haynes greeted him at one of the secured entrances into the GEMP camp. This entrance was made especially for him.
"Greetings, Oscar,"
the young private said. Oscar gave him a toothy smile. Haynes checked today's activity.
"Oscar, I don't see an authorized schedule outing today."
Oscar signed, "Special assignment, very important." The young man eyed Oscar.
"Is that so? Is this something I can mention to Dr. Launse when I see him?"
Oscar hooted a few times. He worked his mouth as if he were talking to Haynes. Then he produced an L ration card. Steve had about 3 years' worth stockpiled in his office. It was meant to be used on the mainland. Haynes smiled. The last L ration card Oscar gave him had about $300 on it. The card disappeared somewhere in the private's pants pocket. He simply said,
"I'll let Reynolds know you are out. Treat him well, too."
Oscar raised the fingertips of an open right hand to his lips, and he gently moved them away as if blowing a kiss. In a way, it was just that. This was more than a thank you if it worked. The path to the village was long. It usually took about 30 minutes if he wasn't in a hurry. When he emerged from the hidden passageway, the sun had just started to rise. It was another 15 minutes' walk to the village. Oscar had decided he would approach Gila first. Whenever he was in the village, she seemed to pay more attention to him. She was also the most attentive student he had whenever he taught them new signs. As a backup plan, he brought chocolate. He quickened his pace and made it to the village fringe in less than 5 minutes. He slowly approached Gila's shelter. Stepping around to the entrance, he quickly peered inside. Empty. She had to be down by the river. He casually walked the short distance and found her with Femi. Both had found fruit and were washing it for an early meal. Femi heard the break of twigs first. She turned, thinking it would be Tutu and one of the other GEMPs. She tapped Gila when she saw the elder. Both giggled as the elder slowly made his way toward them. Oscar signed, "Children, morning. Good to see pretty Gila and Femi." Both signed and said, "Elder, we are surprised to see you." Oscar replied, "Really? God sent me to check on his children." Gila and Femi excitedly ran up to Oscar. Femi signed, "Elder, it was frightening last night. The sky flashed bright many times, followed by loud boom sounds." Gila followed with, "And Moss ran into the village. He said God made the light and sound." Oscar signed, and Tutu did not believe him. "Elder," Gila said, "how did you know?" "God sent me to check on his children." The 2 GEMPs were excited. They giggled. "Elder, you must tell the village." Oscar signed, "Stop. Not yet. Elder wants to talk to both of you." The 2 settled down. "Yes, Elder?" Femi said. "The elder favors you 2. They blushed. "You have a special place in Elder's heart." They giggled and leaned into one another. "Elder would like to show how much he favors Gila and Femi. Will you let me show you?" Gila asked, "How, Elder?" "May I touch you in a special place?" They blinked. "Come, let's not wake the others yet. Let us go into Gila's shelter, just the 3 of us." They hesitated. "Are you going to hurt us like Tutu and G2?" Oscar shook his head. "Elder favors the 2 and will be kind. He has a treat." 2 pieces of chocolate appeared in his hand. He finger-spelt CHOCOLATE. He motioned for them to eat it. Each GEMP took a piece. They sniffed and lightly licked at the heart-shaped milk chocolate pieces. Each piece was as big as a thumb. Gila pronounced, Chocolate? Oscar bit into air and signed, bite, surprise inside. Femi bit first. Her eyes widened and she savored the sweet innards. She sucked in the gooey cherry gel, leaving the heart empty. Hila watched Femi. It must be good, she thought, and took a bite. The cherry flavor mixed in with the milk chocolate coating burst into her mouth. She looked at Oscar, who was staring intently at her, and wanted another. The deliciously gooey filling coated her teeth and tongue and made her salivate. Both signed, "More, please. May I have another?" Oscar smiled. Elder wants to favor Femi and Hila. We go to Hila's shelter. Oscar has appetite for pretty Femi and Hila. The two blushed, and still licking their lips, walked, without a word, back into the village. Everyone was still asleep, which was good. They walked past Kiri's shelter and heard what sounded like Moss's voice. They knew what he was doing. He favored Kiri. Now Elder was going to favor them, and both became excited. The Elder was going to give them more chocolate. As they reached Hila's shelter, both GEMPs looked at each other and nodded. Elder knew God, and he had chocolate too. Steve set his tray of fruit, toast, and Greek yogurt next to Kelly. She was eating a bagel. A half-empty cup of coffee was in her hands. She stared blankly at a wall behind Steve.
Kelly, I'm sorry. I was so tired,
Asleep while we were talking.
It was 1-something in the morning.
1:39 a.m., and you fell asleep. This was important. Steve knew it was fruitless to argue. He would never win this battle. It wasn't worth the mental ammo.
Kelly, I'm sorry. Really, I'm awake now.
The moment passed, she said. Steve sighed. The two ate in silence. A few minutes later, Grenier walked into the cafeteria, spotted Steve and Kelly. He hurried over to the two with an alarmed look on his face. Kelly noticed Grenier first. She reached over and touched Steve on the sleeve, her anger forgotten. "Steve," she said. Grenier sat down.
Steve, we have a situation. The GEMPs? Worse. Oscar.
Kelly said, "Oh my God, is he okay?"
You two need to see this.
He got up and left. Kelly got up first, with Steve very close. All three walked into briefing room 3. It was the only room with a large 110-inch flat screen. Rogers, the morning shift supervisor, sat at one end of the conference table. He had a media control tablet in front of him. Colonel Codper, scowling, sat at the other. Kelly and Steve sat in the middle on one side, Grenier the other. Kelly, still worried, said, "Is Oscar all right?" Codper spoke.
More than all right, ma'am. Damn near perfect.
She gave him an inquisitive look. Grenier nodded at Rogers. Rogers tapped on the tablet a few times. The lights dimmed, and the flat screen came on. He moved out of the way so that the others could see the entire screen.
At 05:45, PFC Haynes allowed Oscar unauthorized entry into GEMP Village 1.
He narrated. The screen showed several images of Oscar moving through the passageway. The first few moments he was moving at a regular pace. Then suddenly he picked up his pace and practically started running. Clearly he was on a mission, and agenda of his own making. Rogers tapped at the tablet. The video changed to Oscar with Hila and Femi by the riverbank. Codper asked,
What is he doing?
Steve watched with dread. He followed the conversation.
Oscar is tempting the two. Tempting,
Codper began.
Tempting them for...
His voice trailed off. Everyone watched as the camera showed Hila and Femi each eat a heart-shaped chocolate filled with something. Kelly identified with their reactions. Then the three headed into the village. The video switched to show the three entering Hila's shelter. The screen went dark. The room remained silent for a moment. Codper said,
Did that little chimp of yours do what I think he did? Did he fornicate with the GEMPs?
Steve turned to face the colonel.
I can't believe Oscar would... Shit.
Codper said,
Son, the little bastard monkey of yours is out of control.
I take offense to that, Colonel. Oscar is not out of control, and he is not a bastard. Codper stood up, outraged, yelled while pointing to the screen.
What did we just watch?
Oscar doing what? Codper yelled.
He's not supposed to be doing that.
Colonel, he's still an animal with urges. He's
fucking those beasts.
Kelly had a distressed look on her face. She thought for a moment and said, Isn't this exactly what we wanted? Everyone turned to face her. Grenier said,
Kelly, what do you mean?
Think about it. Oscar is the only one on this base who either doesn't have a partner or can't go to the mainland for outlet. He's stuck on this island with humans and GEMPs. Steve sucked in his lips.
She's right. I hadn't thought about that. Damn.
Codper said,
So we let this chimp of yours fornicate with the GEMPs?
Grenier said,
Yes.
Codper turned.
What?
Grenier turned to Steve. Steve, what have men in power done over the ages?
Most have abused it. History is full of examples.
Grenier said,
What about religion?
Steve said,
Some of the worst examples of abuse.
Codper sat down.
Outrageous. No man of God would ever abuse his position.
Steve replied,
Colonel, the Bible is full of examples. Maybe it's how you look at it. There is only one way to read the Bible, son. It is Haman.
Pardon?
Haman, Colonel. He was the vizier of King Ahasuerus. If it wasn't for Esther, the entire Hebrew nation would have been wiped out. And there's Herod, Judas, Pilate, Simon, all men of power. The Bible shows that eventually those who abuse power fail and fall.
Codper nodded. He had just finished reading Matthew 26 and 27.
Okay, son, I get it. But that still doesn't excuse the fact of your little monkey fornicating.
Grenier said,
Colonel, you're missing the point. This is a fluid experiment. Nothing is set in stone here.
The colonel was about to call Grenier son, but remembered last night.
What do you suggest we do? Steve, I think this is the best thing to happen. Think of it. Oscar is showing us the development of corruption of power. He's learned to work the system and is now using it to his advantage. We got 2 experiments going here.
Steve took a deep breath. Grenier was right. He looked over to Kelly. She smiled. Even though it was gross on some levels, she also saw it as very sweet. Oscar having a girlfriend or 2.
Okay, we let Oscar continue, but I think we should punish him in some way.
Codper said,
I'm not liking this one bit. This project seems to me is getting out of hand. In what way?
Grenier said. Codper remained silent. Civilians, he thought. Non-believing heathens.
Colonel, we are gathering information. At the taxpayer's expense.
Codper spat. Grenier retorted,
And the military cost what each year?
Codper stood up. Grenier stood up and leaned forward.
The project is not in jeopardy, Colonel.
The 2 men stared at one another for an undetermined amount of seconds. Codper blinked again.
A standing army is vital in a world full of evil.
Grenier answered,
Especially when we are the cause of such evil. Colonel, look, we walked into this project knowing that all sorts of unknowns were going to pop up. This is one. It won't be the last.
Codper sat down.
I'm adding this to my report to the chairman.
Grenier nodded.
And I'm adding this to my report to the President and Joint Chief of Staff.
Steve and Kelly held their breath. Codper and Grenier clashed before, but not like this. Rogers coughed.
Sirs, briefing is in another 30 minutes.
Codper said,
Understood.
Grenier looked at his watch.
My suggestion is to not mention this incident while Oscar is here. I'd like him to think he got away with his adventure.
Codper said,
And that will accomplish what? Let him continue. We can observe him and the GEMPs. That is the reason we made him the Elder.
Steve nodded.
True, but for him to think he got away is good. Let's work this out. How far will he go? Will the other male GEMPs challenge him? Will God's might be enough for Oscar to keep his position? We just had another can of worms opened. Plump and juicy. I say we let it ride.
Kelly nodded. I agree, but for different reasons. All the males turned to her. Grenier asked,
Such as?
It's not that I like the idea of Oscar turning into an alpha, dominating, misogynistic male, but that Gila and Femi are in a position of power. You've read the book, The Power of the Pussy, right? She got blank stares. Men, she thought. Bright as doorknobs sometimes. Look, Oscar wants something. Apparently, he went to great lengths to get it. I used to think men had it so easy in enticing women, but I'm seeing it differently now. First, Oscar had to be in a position that got him noticed. Next, he had to dream up his plan. He needed the means and materials. Then he had to execute it. If anything, I'd wonder how one, Oscar got the chocolate, and second, got PFC Haynes to allow him to leave unauthorized. Guys, Oscar has been working the system for years to his advantage. Seems to me we wanted to make GEMPs human. Instead, we made a chimpanzee human as well. But anyway, as I was saying, Gila and Femi are in a position to work the system themselves. They are getting chocolate in exchange for Oscar's needs.
Fornicating,
Codper spat. Kelly continued. The GEMPs have been sexually active for about a year now, and... Codper said,
Disgusting little beasts.
Kelly scowled. Disgusting? Colonel, are you living in the Dark Ages?
I just don't like the thought of all this.
Kelly eyed him for a few seconds, but decided to not push. Clearly the Colonel had issues, but this was not the time to air his dirty laundry. She said, Oscar should continue, and, of course, we should watch him. Grenier nodded.
Colonel, I know there has been a breach in discipline and protocol in one or more instances, but I strongly urge you to allow it to continue. Talk to PFC Haynes if you must, but don't spook him. Punish him later, but not now. Don't tell me how to discipline my men.
Grenier raised his voice a little louder than he had wanted.
God damn it, Colonel. No one is stepping on your dick.
He blushed, turned to Kelly.
Sorry.
Turned back to Codper.
This is an opportunity of getting good data. This, as odd as it seems, is the reason for spending all this money. The emergence of human behavior, good, bad, or indifferent, by non-humans.
He was red in the cheeks. If he could have the Colonel replaced, he would, but the chairman favored him. Fuck, Grenier thought. Codper stared at Grenier a long time. He'd let the little monkey continue. He'll have the duty sergeant watch Haynes closer. He'll give Grenier what he wanted, but he would recommend to the chairman the project be terminated and the GEMPs destroyed. He'd see Grenier pushing the unemployment line, and it would be good.
All right, we'll let the little chimp continue. For now. Thank you,
Grenier said. Oscar used up his quota of chocolate for the month early. He had another week of waiting, and that was much too long. Femi and Gila wanted chocolate, and he wanted them. Sergeant Farmers was behind his desk. He knew Oscar wanted something the moment the little chimp rounded the corner.
Oscar,
he signed.
Hello.
Oscar jumped up onto a chair next to Farmer's desk. He signed, Chocolate, you have? Farmer said,
Of course, Oscar.
He smiled.
I always reserve extra for you, but...
Oscar produced an L ration card. Farmers leaned back into his chair.
How many boxes?
Oscar remembered the first time he tried this. He asked for 1 box. When he came back for another, Farmer said he needed another L ration card. Oscar was so furious he thought about ripping the man's arm off and beating him with it. He learned over the years. He signed, "Give me 2 now, 2 next week, 2 week after that." Farmers nodded. The chimp learned some bargaining over the years. Besides, he liked Oscar. Everyone did. Oscar had a cachet of L rations, and that made it even better.
Done. Flavor filling, nuts or solid?
1 box flavor, 1 box mixed, please. A few minutes later, Oscar had his 2 boxes. He hurried to his room to drop the boxes off before this morning's briefing. He'd ration them out to Femi and Hila over a week's time. Today, he'd get his outing schedule. Chapter 6. After the morning briefing, Codper went to his room.
Heathens,
he spat. The bottle of whiskey sat next to his computer keyboard on his desk. He reached for the cup next to it and blew inside. He poured a healthy dose of booze and swallowed half of it in 1 gulp, then filled the cup again and sipped this time. He sat back in his chair and stared at a blank monitor. His Bible was within reach, and when he touched it, he immediately felt at ease in a way adult beverage would never make him feel. He turned to Deuteronomy. "Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. But thou shalt utterly detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing." Deuteronomy, chapter 7, verse 26. He finished the cup and poured another. Oscar had a feeling that something changed. Everyone in the room avoided looking at him directly. It took him years to understand that when humans look you in the eye, it is not a challenge. He sat in between Kelly and Steve. Kelly smiled down at him and gave him a hug. She almost never did that. Steve made idle talk. He asked about his evening, and did he read anything special. He asked if he wanted to talk about something. Oscar caught a frown from Grenier. It disappeared when he saw Oscar staring, and he smiled. The Colonel was in a foul mood. He was almost always in a foul mood. Recently, he started smelling like naughty water. This morning was no exception. His face was scrunched up during the entire meeting, but that meant little to Oscar. He was thinking of Hila and Femi and this morning. He started to become excited again, but quickly thought of something else, like TV and video games. But both the GEMPs sure felt good. Everyone agreed he should visit the village daily, which of course he didn't mind. That was the best news. Ever. But when the righteous turneth away from his righteousness, and committeth iniquity, and doeth according to all the abominations that the wicked man doeth, shall he live? All his righteousness that he hath done shall not be mentioned. In his trespass that he hath trespassed, and in his sin that he hath sinned, in them shall he die. Ezekiel, chapter 18, verse 24. He poured another. Oscar hurried to his room. He found a small pouch he could use to carry some chocolate. He put in some chewy filling ones and a few with nut centers. He hoped the first box would last a couple of days. "Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak." Matthew, chapter 26, verse 41. He poured another. Oscar emerged from the passageway and casually walked to the village. He made his way to the riverbank and entered from there. Most of the GEMPs were sitting around grooming one another. Hila and Femi sat near Moss and Kiri, talking. Moss had picked figs earlier and now shared them. Kiri had several pomegranates between her legs. She handed one to Moss and another to Hila and Femi. They looked up and saw Oscar. "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it. Corinthians, chapter 10, verse 13. His hand slipped, and some whiskey missed the cup. Steve, Kelly, and Grenier sat in the observation room. 2 of the large monitors were focused on Moss and those around him. Oscar came into view and sat in the center. Gila and Femi blushed and acted shy. Moss signed,
Elder, Moss has questions about God.
Oscar replied, My child, ask. Grenier leaned back in his chair.
If only I had popcorn.
Steve shot Grenier a quick glance.
Ken, this is serious. What are we doing?
Grenier leaned forward to get a better look at Steve.
We just doubled down. All that happens now is just profit. Nothing lost, everything gained.
He leaned back again. Kelly asked, How so?
Grenier answered, Oscar. Ironically, he's our human link.
I will make mine arrows drunk with blood, and my sword shall devour flesh, and that with the blood of the slain and of the captives, from the beginning of revenges upon the enemy. Deuteronomy, chapter 32, verse 42. He misjudged the distance and grabbed air. The second attempt he grabbed cup and drank. Oscar signed, God is like us, but taller. He is smart, knows a lot about many things. He watches us. He takes care of us. Then Oscar remembered the key item he had to slip in. He took his right index finger, lifted up his left elbow to his chest level, and struck it lightly and quick with the index finger. He finger-spelled, punish. The 3 imitated Oscar. Moss pronounced it, Poonish? Oscar shook his head and signed, Sounds like run. He hooked a right-hand index finger, L, around his left-hand index, L, thumb. Both hands had the index fingers parallel to the ground with the thumbs up. He quickly thrusted both hands away from him quickly. Moss nodded, said, Punish. Oscar gave him a toothy smile. The others pronounced the word. Oscar clapped. Femi asked, What does this word mean? And after all that is come upon us for our evil deeds, and for our great trespass, seeing that thou, our God, hast punished us less than our iniquities deserve, and hast given us such deliverance as this, should we again break thy commandments, and join in affinity with the people of these abominations, wouldst not thou be angry with us, till thou hadst consumed us, so that there should be no remnant, nor escaping. Ezra, chapter 9, verses 13 through 14. He stopped drinking. He was satisfied with his heavy buzz. Oscar sighed. God would take away all that is good. No food, no shelter, no clothing. He looked at Gila and Femi. No chocolate. Moss and Kiri gave Oscar a curious look. Gila and Femi frowned, and tears welled up in their eyes. Oscar continued, Listen to God. Follow his ways and his teachings through me, and you shall be rewarded. Moss said, I believe in God. He pointed to himself, pointed to his forehead, and clasped his hands together in front of him. He finger-spelt in, and finished with a right-hand index finger to the sky, and bringing the hand down open palm, fingers slightly spread, palm facing left to chest level. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine. And I will punish the world for their evil, and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible. I will make a man more precious than fine gold, even a man than the golden wedge of Ophir. Isaiah, chapter 13, verses 10 through 12. He turned on his computer and waited precious seconds for the welcome screen to appear. His email program started immediately. Within a minute, he saw a message from the chairman embedded in a stream of other messages. He clicked on the chairman's and read. It was a simple email. It read,
My good Colonel, I agree. The situation is dire and deserves further congressional oversight. The President, the Joint Chief of Staff, DARPA, and the NBAC are behind this project, fully. This is not a battle that can be fought by committee. Then I proclaimed a fast there at the river of Ahava, that we might afflict ourselves before our God, to seek of him a right way for us, and for our little ones, and for all our substance. For I was ashamed to require of the king a band of soldiers and horsemen to help us against the enemy in the way, because we had spoken unto the king, saying, The hand of our God is upon all them for good that seek him. But his power and his wrath is against all them that forsake him. So we fasted and besought our God for this, and he was entreated of us. Ezra, chapter 8, verses 21 through 23. May you find the strength, my friend, to do what is right in your heart. With all sincerity, B.
His heavy buzz faded quickly. He was on his own now. A pity. Tutu walked over to Oscar. He said and signed,
Tutu not believe. No proof.
Oscar stood up. He was still a foot shorter than Tutu. Do I look like Tutu? Tutu frowned, said,
No.
Do I talk like Tutu?
Elder has no voice, talks with hands.
Proof God exists. I am different, yet we talk. We
do not see the same thing. I see small GEMP, hairy, no voice. God is flawed to make Elder funny looking.
Oscar's anger flared up. He thought about hitting Tutu, but decided Steve would be mad and take away his chocolate and TV. He did once before. Oscar screamed and broke anything and everything that was throwable. But Steve stood there and waited. When Oscar finished, Steve flew into a chimp-like, crazed rage. He chased Oscar around the room, screaming, yelling, and throwing things at Oscar. The chimp was terrified. That was the last time Steve had to react extreme. Oscar looked Tutu in the eyes. Steve told him to make sure he doesn't blink first. Tutu stared back. No one challenged him before like this. The elder locked gaze and never let up. Tutu felt a growing coldness creep up his back. He was losing his nerve. The elder won. Oscar watched as Tutu looked down. Tutu, feeling disgusted, said,
Tutu no like God or elder.
He looked at Gila and Femi.
Follow me.
Both said, No. Tutu gave them a scowl. Both females stood up and signed, No. Tutu, forgetting his encounter with Oscar, roared. The other GEMPs around the village scattered from the center. Tutu was mad, and someone was going to get hurt. An alarm went off in the command center. Steve, Kelly, and Grenier were still in the observation room talking. Grenier clicked an intercom button near his seat.
This is Grenier. Who triggered that alarm?
A specialist stood up.
Sir, GEMPs are about to fight.
One of the large monitors showed Tutu puffing out his chest, roaring. Grenier turned to Steve, said,
Might be a good time to show God. I'm worried that Tutu might hurt Oscar.
Oh, Steve, Oscar could get hurt, Kelly said. Steve shook his head.
It's the other way around. Oscar is strong enough to rip Tutu to pieces. The GEMPs only have 2/3 our strength.
Grenier pressed the intercom button.
Prepare Mr. Launse for a day launch. Start to queue up clouds and place a rainstorm on standby.
He turned to Steve and released the button.
Agreed?
Steve nodded.
Agreed.
Grenier pressed the button again.
Mr. Launse is going out in 5 minutes. Prepare a subterranean launch.
Steve took a deep breath and exhaled.
Kelly, ready? This is it.
She nodded, and the two raced out. Grenier sat back down and wished he had that bag of popcorn. He pulled out his cell phone and called the kitchen. Cookie was on duty.
Cookie, can you bring up a large bag of your home-style popcorn to Observation Room 1, please?
A deep voice answered.
Of course, sir. Up in 5 minutes. Perfect. Thanks. I owe you.
Cookie answered.
10s and 20s, sir.
Both men laughed before Grenier clicked off. The colonel woke with a start. The alarm sounded. He had been hunched in his chair, in front of the computer. He reached for the phone and dialed the command center.
What's the alarm about?
The voice replied,
GEMP, sir. Possible fight. Mr. Launse is about to go out.
Codper grunted.
On the way.
He slammed the phone down, contemplated taking another drink, but in mid-pour changed his mind. He walked into the bathroom and rinsed his mouth in hot water and mouthwash. Damn apes, he thought. Abominations, the whole lot. Oscar stepped in front of Tutu. Both said no, he signed. He knew Steve well enough to know that fighting to protect the GEMPs would be okay. Tutu roared. He swung at Oscar. Oscar ducked and was glad to have an excuse to hit Tutu. He gave him a 2-arm slam combo. Tutu felt Oscar's powerful hands connect. He would not have thought the small chimp could hit so hard. He swung at Oscar again. Oscar ducked and hit him with another 2-arm combination. He yelled and hit a third time. Tutu fell to the ground. He pushed himself away from Oscar and ran to his shelter. He emerged with a bow and arrow. Oscar stood his ground and snarled. Tutu took aim. Gila stepped in front of Oscar and stared hard at Tutu. Tutu looked up and said,
Gila, move. I shoot Elder, not you.
Gila slowly shook her head. No. Tutu aimed again. Femi stepped in front of Gila. Tutu looked up, growled.
Move, Femi.
No, Femi said.
Then I shoot you first.
Moss and Kiri stepped in front of Femi. Tutu yelled,
Move! I shoot everyone!
No one moved. Tutu roared and ran at the group. Oscar launched himself at Tutu, Chimp screaming the short distance. He avoided Tutu's grab and bit him on the arm. Oscar screamed and started beating Tutu with outstretched arms. Tutu fell to the ground, curled up into a ball, taking the crazed chimp's powerful arm blows. Suddenly, the ground shook. Fruit from nearby trees dropped to the ground. Moss fell to the ground. It is God. God must be angry. Oscar stopped hitting Tutu. He ran and hid behind Femi and Gila, signing, God mad, God mad, God mad. Tutu tried to stand up. He grabbed at the nearest shelter and pulled himself up. Oscar didn't break anything, but he would be feeling the small creature's attack for days. It would be a painful reminder to never piss off a chimp. Steve heard Oscar's shrill scream over the intercom. Kelly had just finished putting on the last touch of makeup. She rigged him a harness that had a capacitator at the small of his back. It stored enough electricity to drop a raging bull elephant at 20 yards away. With a flick of his wrist, stream of bolt, elephant down. He turned to Staff Sergeant Irwin, who operated the ground shaker and tunnel lift to the surface. Irwin flipped the switch, and massive metal pads underneath the village started vibrating. Randomly, a pad would recoil away from the surface and strike hard. Irwin said, Ready, sir? Steve nodded. He was standing in a bowl-like platform. Irwin flipped another switch, and 2 halves of an acrylic cone sealed together to protect him from dirt. Irwin flipped a 3rd switch, and Steve started to rise. The surface above him opened up, and dirt poured in around him. The platform caught most of it. Fog rolled in and covered the gaping hole Steve was emerging from. Once out in the open, the 2 acrylic halves separated. Dirt spilled in and covered his feet. The ground stopped shaking, and smoke appeared out of nowhere. The bright sky started to turn dark, and a hole appeared in the ground. Kiri grabbed Moss's hand and squeezed tightly. All the GEMPs watched as a hooded figure appeared from the ground. Moss recognized the figure. He said, "It is God." Steve stepped away from the platform and walked over to Moss. Moss dropped to his knees and said, "God, I knew you would be here." Steve looked down.
Moss, my emissary, no need to kneel. Stand.
Tutu walked over to Steve and stared intensely. The hood hid most of Steve's face, and Tutu squirted. He strained to see detail, but only saw shadowed outlines.
Tutu not believe in God. Hate Elder and you.
Steve grabbed Tutu.
Do not fight the Elder.
He gave Tutu a quick shock.
Ever.
He tossed him aside. Tutu, terrified, shook. He blinked several times and remained on the ground. Steve said,
I am here to guide you, but if you disobey and resist, I can punish.
He made a gesture for Irwin to amp up his volume for a few seconds on the hidden embedded speakers around the village.
Follow me and I reward. Disobey me or the Elder, I will punish.
The threat reverberated throughout the village. The shelters vibrated, as designed, to echo Steve's words. He walked over to Oscar, lifted him up to his face, and whispered,
Love Oscar. Follow. Treat later.
Then said loudly,
Do not fight, my GEMPs. They're to be loved and cared for.
He tossed Oscar aside.
Return home, Elder.
Oscar, torn with feelings, ran off into the jungle. He made his way to his secret entryway. He heard Steve say, Love Oscar, follow, treat later, but was scared at what he saw. On some levels, he comprehended what Steve was doing. On other levels, he was still a chimp that feared the unknown. Technology was magic and powerful. Grenier was halfway through his bowl of popcorn when the Colonel walked in. Grenier caught a whiff of whiskey seconds before the Colonel entered the observation room. It wasn't strong, but it was noticeable enough to know the Colonel liked his breakfast grains liquid. Codper looked at Grenier and the bowl of popcorn. He frowned at the man. Grenier looked up and smiled.
Sorry, Colonel. You'll have to get your own bowl.
No doubt, Codper said. He hardly contained the look of disgust.
You missed the beginning, but it looks like this might be a good movie.
Codper stared at the screen.
I'm not liking this.
Grenier took a deep breath.
Okay, what is it you're not liking? This whole farce. Colonel, why are you here then?
Codper wanted to deck Grenier.
You knew from the beginning what this program was about. You knew what Steve would be doing. You watched this operation from day one and hadn't thought it through. I didn't think this project would have gone this far. And now that you see it?
Grenier put the bowl of popcorn aside. Codper didn't say anything.
Colonel, this is going to be a problem.
Grenier got up and walked out. Chapter 7. Codper made it to his room late. He had lunch, alone, in the cafeteria. Abominations, he thought. He canceled his meeting with the duty officers. There was nothing he wanted to talk about anyway. Captain Pierce had requested morning prayer sessions, but Codper hadn't committed. A conflict of interest lingered in the back of his mind. He sighed and scanned his desk. The Bible was nearby, next to the keyboard. He walked over to his desk and sat. He reached over and grabbed the book, the comfort he needed. A random page. "And I said unto them, Whosoever hath any gold, let them break it off. So they gave it me. Then I cast it into the fire, and there came out this calf. And when Moses saw that the people were naked, for Aaron had made them naked unto their shame among their enemies, then Moses stood in the gate of the camp, and said, Who is on the Lord's side? Let him come unto me. And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves together unto him." Exodus, chapter 32, verses 24 through 26. His other comfort lay within a foot. It was a third full. His cup had dust in it. It always did when empty for more than an hour. He blew into it and wiped the lip clean. Some of the whiskey splashed droplets on his desk as he poured. Those he let dry. The ones that landed on his Bible he wiped off. He randomly picked another page and read, "Draw out also the spear, and stop the way against them that persecute me. Say unto my soul, I am thy salvation. Let them be confounded and put to shame that seek after my soul. Let them be turned back and brought to confusion that devise my hurt. Let them be as chaff before the wind, and let the angel of the Lord chase them." Psalm chapter 35, verses 3 through 5. He said aloud,
God, give me a sign. I am torn over this. I want to do right, but I need your guidance.
He clicked on the email program on his computer and finished the cup. He poured another cup while a stream of subject lines scrolled down the screen. The stream stopped, and one email caught his eyes. The title was, New Assignment Orders, Read Immediately. That he opened. It was directly from the Joint Chief, and it was brief. His official orders were on the way, but effective immediately. He was fired. End of message. He nearly dropped his cup. After staring at the email for nearly 5 minutes, he drained his cup, got up, and walked out of his room. Grenier was at his desk when he heard the new email indicator. It was from the Joint Chief. The first half of the email was what he expected. Codper was being replaced, immediately. The official orders were forthcoming. The second half of the email took him by surprise. He exclaimed, "Fuck." The colonel got his wish after all. Bastard. The ending confused him. He was to continue as director of a new phase in the program. Steve, Kelly, and Oscar were to stay as consultants. His new orders would be sent in by carrier within the next few days. Odd. He got up and walked toward the door. This was something he had to talk to Steve about. Interesting, he thought. Then he realized what the new phase would be. By the time he reached the door, he was giddy. This was going to be a great day. As he started walking out, he nearly bumped into Codper. Before he could say something, Codper recoiled an arm and struck quickly. His fist connected with Grenier's chin, launching him backwards into his desk. Grenier rubbed the hit off and braced himself for another. Codper stepped past the room threshold.
You fuck. You had me replaced. I had to kick your ass. You ruined my career. You're the one who went Dark Age on me. You had one job to do and that came into question. What do you expect? You blindsided. As if you hadn't tried to blindside me. The chairman left you to hang, friend. You got eaten by your own kind. Nonsense. You better fuck nonsense, because no one else will touch you.
Codper rushed in with an uppercut that felt air. Grenier sidestepped and slammed an open palm into the colonel's temple. He didn't want to kill the man, so he scaled the blow down. Codper's head hit the edge of the desk. He collapsed and stayed down. Grenier said, You fuck. How dare you come into my office like this? You medieval son of a bitch. Take your Bible-thumping ass and leave. Codper slowly got up. He realized Grenier had better skills. This is not over. he hissed as he gave himself some distance from Grenier.
The hell it better be over. Fuck with me and you could kiss your pension goodbye. Don't threaten me. I just did. Now get the fuck out, or I'll have you carried out breathing or otherwise. Your choice.
Codper eyed the younger man intensely. He had better skill, that was certain.
This is not finished. Colonel, don't write checks with your mouth that your ass can't cash.
Codper backed out of the room.
Fuck you. And that goddamn stupid horse you rode in on.
Grenier spat. Seconds later, all was quiet. Codper gone, Grenier sat in his chair. He'd give Steve and Kelly the news later. The silly, pompous, pious ass, Grenier thought. One job and he couldn't do that right. He took several deep breaths to relax. After punching in the base intercom code on his phone, he announced, "Attention all personnel. Attention all personnel. Colonel Codper has been relieved of duty by the Joint Chief of Staff. Under no circumstances are you obligated to follow his orders. His replacement is en route. Until then, Captain Pierce is temporarily in charge." That should take care of most of the personnel, he thought. It was the small faction of devotees that worried him. It was no secret the colonel held Bible studies on Sundays. It was also no secret that most of the attendees leaned just as far right, if not further. Grenier sucked in his lips as he realized Captain Pierce leaned just as hard to the right. "Fuck," was all he could say. He quickly tapped out a message to the Joint Chief. "Request immediate military personnel replacement. Predict conditions will devolve to dangerous levels." Message sent. Captain Pierce knocked on the colonel's door. Codper had just finished nursing his 4th cup of whiskey when he heard the knock. He was not in the mood to have guests. He took another sip. "What?" The captain's voice from behind the door said, "Colonel, we need to talk." "It's unlocked." Another sip. Pierce walked in. "This is not right, sir." Codper nodded and pursed his lips. "Yeah, short of shooting the fuck, I can't do anything." Pierce eyed the older officer. He sucked air through his front teeth, making a sharp smack sound. "Why don't you, sir?" Codper looked up from his cup. "My pension. That's why I won't." Pierce stepped in closer. "Sir, the little prick is playing with fire. Government project or not. It's not right. We know how you feel about those things. Most of us agree." Codper stared the younger man in the eye. "It's your problem now." Pierce nodded. "Not what I wanted to hear." Codper drained his cup. The whiskey still stung on the way down. He hadn't drank enough to take care of that. "Son, I've been doing this far too long. I'm tired. The world is fucked, and you want me to kill my enemy?" Pierce nodded. "Sounds about right." Codper poured himself another. "What would you have me do? Take over the base? Murder everyone and blame those abominations?" "It's still sounding right to me, sir." Codper eyed the man. "We could release the other GEMPs. Let them run wild in here. Afterward, we burn this place to the ground. Grenade those with bullet wounds to the head to remove traces. Thou shalt not kill. Bullshit, Colonel. We are soldiers. That's what we do. These are our enemies. They are creating creatures outside of God's realm. You've been outspoken for weeks now. This is the time to do something." Codper started to pour himself another drink when suddenly Pierce stopped him. The young man held a vice grip on the bottle. "Let go," Codper said. "Sir, you in or out? Let go." Pierce released the bottle. "I'm in, but we have to remove all traces." Pierce smiled.
Thank you for listening to GEMP's chapters 5 to 7. If you enjoy this half of GEMP, please like and subscribe. Click the notification bell icon to make sure you don't miss the next part of GEMP. Until then.
Look in our eyes and understand we are a better reflection. Human, but not Engineered to be better, to be different. A clean slate to mark up, an empty glass to fill. We are the future, body, mind, and soul. Speaking by voice and by hand, learning to cope and adapt. We are engineered. Treat us well and be friends. Fight us and be our enemy. We are here now. Your future you created. Teach us and we will learn. Superior, special, talented. We are great, we are engineered. This is our story, from the dawn of humans, from Lucy to Lucy, thinking better because we are. Look in our eyes and understand, we are a better reflection. Look in our eyes and understand, we are a plexus reflection. We are the future, body, mind, and soul. Speaking by voice and by hand, learning to cope and adapt. We are engineered. Treat us well and be friends. Fight us and be our enemy. We are here now. Your future you created. Teach us and we will learn. Superior, special, talented. We are great, we are engineered. This is our story, from the dawn of humans, from Lucy to Lucy. Thinking better because we are. Look in our eyes and understand, we are a better reflection.